Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange is going to be released on 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and digital on September 21st. A brilliant movie. And the actor who was the star of that film on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line, Malcolm McDowell, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. How are you, sir?
Very well, Rich. How's it going?
Better for talking to you. A huge fan of yours and this film. And have you seen it in the 4K Ultra? Have you been able to see it? And is there anything different about it? Have you seen it yet?
I haven't. No, I don't. There's nothing different with the cut or anything. It's the same movie. I can't believe that even if it's in 4K, then it's any better than it was when it first came out, because Kubrick was such a stickler for the technicalities of the film. It would have been perfect, but I love 4K. It's great, isn't it? Especially when you're watching football from England. 4K,
yes,
you feel like you're there. So I'd be very interested to see what it's like. I'm sure it's absolutely amazing.
What was it like for you to be directed by Stanley Kubrick back in your day, Malcolm?
Oh God, that's such an open-ended question. Stanley, didn't do much directing on the set. It's really interesting. I'd be hard put, to think of a time. Well, the only time he actually gave me any direction was coming through a door. I came through the door, and he goes, "Can you be, can something be happening?" I went, "Like what? Coming through the door?" He goes, "Yeah. Why don't you think of Dave Prowse? Dave Prowse was Mr. Universe. Think of him making love to Milena Canonero, who was like a little tiny stick." And of course, when I opened the door, I had a shit-eating grin on my face. That was the best piece of direction he gave me. It's actually the only piece of direction that I remember, because Stanley was he did all the work with you or with me. Before we started the film, there was like 6 to 8 months of preparation and finding locations and costuming and all the whole rigmarole that goes on. And I was out of this house 2 or 3 times a week, going through stuff with him and having lunches and dinners and all the rest of it. And that's where he really, I think, kind of gauged, what I was like, whether he could trust me and all the rest of it. And the actual person that helped me the most in the role was actually not Stanley Kubrick, but another director who was a great friend and a man I love dearly, called Lindsay Anderson, who I'd done my first movie, If, with. And If is the movie that Stanley saw and cast me. So I did no auditions or anything. My audition was If, this movie, which is a brilliant movie. And I asked Lindsay if he would mind reading the script. Of course, he groaned at having to read somebody else's script, Anyway, he did read it, and I went round to see him. And the first thing he said when I came into his flat was, "Thank God I don't have to make this film."
Right.
Which kind of made my heart sink. And I said, "Well, it's not your kind of material. You couldn't make this film. This is going to be, commercial film." Because I knew that would irritate him a bit, because, of course, he'd love to make a commercial movie, and he'd made enough of the art stuff. And anyway, I said, "Look, can you give me any help at all on this?" Because he goes, "Yes, there is a close-up of you in If. When you open the gymnasium doors to look at the prefects to be beaten, you look at them and you smile. That's how you play this part."
Because you need to have some sort of psychosis that you're enjoying the violence, right? Like that's not it. What is it then?
No. It's just a question of style. it's just it's not him smiling at the fact that he's beating and raping and stuff, which is part of it, of course, but it's really a matter of attitude. You can have that smile on your face, like it's a real, like, screw you kind of smile. But not necessarily when he's, when there's violence involved. In fact, the first scene was me taking off my pajamas and rolling over, showing the doctor my bare ass, and she sticks a hypodermic needle in me and gives me a shot. That was my first film, the first shooting I did on the movie. And of course, Stanley, because it was my first shot, said, I'm not going to use a retractable needle. I want you to. I went, what? You want me to take a shot? I said, what's the shot going to be? He goes, well, it's distilled water. I said, well, does Madge know? That was the actress. Mm-hmm. He goes, yeah, she's practicing now. And I went, Stanley, I mean, she's got all this dialogue, and you're expecting her to give me a shot as a doctor. I mean, that's asking a lot. Knowing I did not want to do it,
Yes.
But it was my first shot, so what am I going to say? I'm not going to say no. And, of course, I look at her, and I see she's sweating on her top lip. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
I'd agree.
I can see her with the needle, and I can see she's already shaking. And so she goes, now I'm giving, and she has quite a lot of dialogue, and she's asking me how I feel. And I go, well, what about these videos? I mean, I started to feel sick. I mean, what? And she goes, this shot will help you. Now turn over. And I kind of do a little thing with the band of the pajama, and turn over. And she literally threw that hypodermic needle into me like it was going into a rhino. It went up to the hilt, because I think she'd been told, don't baby it. You got to get it in fast and clean. Well, she got it in, and it went up to the hilt, and I gave her, but I remembered Lindsay's advice. You smile. I had this eating grin on my face, and then she just wanted to get the damn thing over with and started to pump this thing so fast that this water had nowhere to go. And I leapt, 10 feet in the air. Michael Jordan would have been proud of me.
Yes, sir.
Vertical takeoff. It hurt so much. It was like a huge cramping. It took like an hour to disperse this bubble in my
I don't mean to laugh, but this is the sort of thoughts that you would have sitting here as a fan of the film, that Kubrick wanted to make sure that everything was as real as possible. I've got Malcolm McDowell here on the Rich Eisen Show. What about the scene where you are having your eyes kept open by a clamp, a surgical device that was used for eye surgery? That was the real deal. Did you get what was that like for you as the actor, Malcolm McDowell?
Well,
with Kubrick?
How would it be for you?
It would be dreadful. It would be positively
that's
dreadful.
Exactly what it was. There's no way around it. It was horrible, but
oh God.
He had a doctor there to persuade me that it was going to be fine. The doctor was a nice guy and said, oh, yes, well, you won't feel anything because you're going to be anesthetized. And I went, okay. So, and how long will that last? Oh, yeah. But every, 10, 15 seconds, I have to put artificial tears in your eyes because otherwise they'll dry up because you're not blinking. I went, Doc, you won't forget that. He goes, no. But then, of course, Stanley gave the guy a line of dialogue. All he had to say was, how are you feeling, little Alex? And he kept saying, what's your name again? I went, Jesus, Doc, don't even say the line. Who cares? It'll be cut anyway. And, of course, I'm tapping my foot,
Right.
with the 15 seconds. I'm going, get it in, Doc. God, it's drying up here, drying up. And it's true. I did not feel it at the time, but these lid locks, they're called, were falling out of my eyes because, of course, they're used in delicate eye operations, but you're usually lying on your back. You're not sitting up watching videos.
Oh.
And, they kept slipping out. And every time they fell out, they'd drag across my cornea. And I got really messed up corneas. And it wasn't until I was driving into my street in London that the pain, I cannot even describe it. It was so horrendous.
Oh,
it drove me to the point of madness. I mean, literally slamming my head into the wall. It was so painful. Luckily, my doctor lived around the corner, and obviously he knew it was serious, and he came running around with his bag, and he had some morphine in it and gave me a shot. And I was out for the night, and the next morning I woke up, the eyes heals very quickly. I mean, it wasn't healed totally, but the pain had completely gone, and the cuts had healed. It just felt like I had sand in the eyes,
Did Kubrick know this, that you needed this health
Yeah,
care?
he knew it.
Okay.
He knew it. I mean, I told him, and he was like, well, this is his sense of humor. So when I got out of the thing, the doctor put a pad on one of my eyes because he obviously saw something. He didn't have his microscope or anything with him.
Right.
And so Stanley came up, he looked, and he goes, oh, gee, well, can we shoot on this eye?
Come on.
Now that, was Stanley's sense of humor. And I went, yeah, Stanley, we can shoot on this eye. You can destroy both and my sight, and then I'll sue you.
Wow. Malcolm McDowell here on the Rich Eisen Show. I could literally talk to you for hours about this, but is it true you ad-libbed singing in the rain while you conducted the mayhem in the film? That was your... Why'd you do that? Where'd you come up with that one, Malcolm?
Well, in the scene, Alex is at his most euphoric. And euphoria is, is put in a beautiful box by Gene Kelly and that movie, Singing in the Rain. And if you want to replicate euphoria, that's it. That's what Hollywood has given us. And it was so iconic and extraordinary and stayed with me. I saw it as a young man, maybe a child. And it was so extraordinary that, so when I started, when he asked me if I could dance, and of course I can't really dance, but I said, can I dance? I was so bored by sitting around for 5 days and doing nothing. And I launched into it, and on the beats would be smacking and, doing all that as a kind of joke. And I looked at Stanley. He was laughing so hard he had his handkerchief stuffed in his mouth. And he put me in his car. We drove back to his house because we were on location. And he bought the rights to Singing in the Rain. And we came back and we shot the whole thing using that as the basis of the scene.
So it was a choice by you, and you felt the freedom to do it because we had Vincent D'Onofrio, who was one of the stars of Full Metal Jacket, on a couple of years ago, saying that he hardly ever got a direction from Kubrick. He would always say to him, like, what are you thinking? That would be essentially it. And so you felt the freedom to come up like, I'm going to do it this way. And he loved, and he laughed. And
no, that's what he demands. That's what he wants. You're a collaborator. You're not just an actor. You're collaborating with him on it. And that, I said to him, now I know why you love Peter so much, Peter Sellers. because he'd do all these funny voices and you get to choose. And he laughed. He said, "You're so right." He goes, "Yeah, Peter was great at that." And, Peter Sellers doing that whole thing as Dr. Strangelove in the wheelchair and the Nazi salute, that was all a kind of gag, a joke. And it was so extraordinary. But that's how great things in movies happen sometimes. They're not scripted. They're between. It's a feeling that has to come out at some point. In a weird way, Stanley, it didn't have to give me any direction. He just really supplied the, atmosphere to do it. And that's all you need, really.
So I guess my last question for you, Malcolm McDowell, is how'd you come out of this? You're telling me about scratched corneas and, injections and things of that nature. And I imagine just performing this and going through all this had to, you had to get into the role, had to leave your own senses on occasion. I mean, how did shooting and filming A Clockwork Orange get you?
I'm not a method actor. So, I took the codpiece off at the end of the day and went for dinner. There was no question.
Okay.
It being a psychologically damaging. That's bullshit. I'm an actor. That's what I do. Don't forget the shoot was, I think, sort of 8 or 9 months, and there's 2 or 3 instances of injury. That's it. So most of the time, of course, it was just really. Trying to find, in every scene, the magic. And he and I used to laugh about it. And there was one scene, he came to me and he goes, "Well, that's it." I went, "That's it." He goes, I can't shoot that. That's boring. And I went, "Stanley, that's the way we're going to do it." "No, come on. We got to do something." I went, No. The audience need a moment to recoup. I go, and it was actually the Alex's entrance into prison. And we had a guy there who was telling us, as we had not been to prison, he was giving us all the insights in what happens. Stand behind the white line and empty your pockets and all this kind of stuff. And I went, no, Alex is going. Now he's been caught. He's going to play the game, and it turned out, very well.
Well, I would remember that scene. It wasn't boring. You were told to pick something up and put it back down properly. You were being very, cocky about that. This was just I don't remember that being boring.
Right.
That was a terrific scene.
I don't think it was boring either. So we had a bit of a...
There we go.
I said, well, why don't you get to look at it tomorrow in the dailies, and then we'll see. And I never heard another word about it. So I knew it was fine.
Well, like I said, I could talk to you for hours about this sort of stuff, and then obviously the rest of your career. But I guess... this is a radio TV show with commercials, so I guess the phrase we're victims of the.
It's been very nice talking to you, and I know that you generally do sports.
I do, but I'd love to talk to you about. I know
you're a cinephile, and God bless you for it.
Big time. I said that we're victims of the modern age right now. That we have to throw to commercial break.
Victims of the modern age, absolutely.
We're poor boys. Yeah. I love the film. It's just truly one of my favorites. And let's get you back on. We'll talk about the rest of your career, whatever else you want to promote, and. Maybe a little bit of Liverpool, right? That's your club?
Liverpool? Oh, now we're talking.
Okay. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Malcolm, thanks for the time.
You bet. Nice talking to you.
Same to you. That's Malcolm McDowell right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
Wow.
There's so many other scenes from that film we can go into. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here